He offered no hug, no candle. Just $10 flicked past my face like a debt he was bored of paying. Picked it up, folded it, and placed a thick envelope in his palm. He tore it open and drained of color. Then he spun toward the window and froze. The black SUV outside did not belong to a neighbor, and the man stepping out was the ghost he had spent 19 years outrunning. My name is Addison Hughes. I stood in the center of the beige living room in Hawthorne Ridge, Ohio, watching the man who had legally been my father for 7 years refuse to look me in the eye. The television was on, playing a rerun of a sitcom where the laugh track was the only sound in the house. It was 6:12 in the evening on a Tuesday. It was also my 19th birthday. Gordon Hale sat in his recliner, the leather groaning as he shifted his weight. He did not turn his head. He did not ask how my day was. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled bill, and flicked it in my direction without even glancing away from the screen. The bill fluttered through the air, erratic and pathetic before hitting my collarbone and drifting to the floor. It was $10. That is it, Gordon said. His voice was flat, the kind of tone one uses for a dog that has been begging at the table for too long. Buy yourself something practical. You are 19 now. The free ride is over. I have done my duty. He finally looked at me then. His eyes were hard, devoid of warmth, devoid of the complex history that had brought us to this moment. To him, I was a line item in a ledger that he was finally ready to cross out. He expected me to stoop. He expected me to scramble for the $10, to mutter a thank you, to retreat to my room and cry into my pillow as I had done when I was 13 and 14 and 15. He expected the victim he had carefully cultivated over years of neglect and quiet financial suffocation. But I did not stoop. I did not cry. I did not move to pick up the money. I looked at the bill on the floor, folded slightly at the corner with the face of Hamilton staring up at the ceiling. Then I looked back at Gordon. My heart was not racing. My hands were not shaking. I felt a strange icy calm settle over my chest. A sensation I had practiced in front of the mirror every morning for the last 6 months. It was the feeling of a trap finally snapping shut. Thank you, Gordon, I said. My voice did not tremble. He blinked, surprised by the lack of emotion, surprised that I had used his first name instead of the title he demanded but never earned. He reached for the remote to turn up the volume, dismissing me. I have something for you, too, I said. I reached into the inner pocket of my cardigan. I pulled out a thick cream-colored envelope. It was heavy, weighted with high-quality bond paper, the kind used for legal documents that change lives. It was sealed with a red wax stamp, an archaic touch that I had insisted on, because I wanted him to remember this moment. I wanted him to remember the weight of it. I stepped forward and extended my hand. Gordon looked at the envelope. He frowned. He looked at me, searching for the joke, searching for the plea for affection. He saw neither. He saw only a 19-year-old girl with a straight back and dry eyes. He snatched the envelope from my hand, his movements jerky and annoyed. What is this? He snapped a tuition bill. As I told you, Addison, I am not paying for. Read the front, I said. He held it up. I had handwritten the instructions in black ink. 3 simple sentences that I had written and rewritten, until the penmanship was surgical for Gordon Hale. Open then look outside. Gordon let out a scoff. A short sharp sound of derision. Look outside. What are you playing at? Did you buy a car with money you do not have? He tore the top of the envelope. The sound of the ripping paper was loud in the quiet room. He pulled out the stack of documents inside. There were 12 pages in total stapled at the corner, but he only needed to see the first one. He only needed to see the letterhead at the top and the first paragraph. I watched him read. I watched his eyes scan the header. I saw the exact second the words registered in his brain. His face, usually flushed with the ruddy complexion of a man who enjoyed his evening scotch too much, went completely white. It was instant. The blood drained from his cheeks as if someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His hand, which had been steady enough to throw a $10 bill with insulting precision moments ago, began to tremble. The papers rattled in his grip. "This," he stammered. His voice was a dry rasp. "This is impossible. You could not have access to." He looked up at me, and for the first time in my life I saw genuine terror in his eyes. It was not the fear of physical harm. It was the fear of a man who realizes the lock he put on the closet door has been broken from the inside. "The instruction," I said softly. "The second part." He swallowed hard. He did not want to look. He wanted to throw the papers in the fire. He wanted to scream at me to go to my room. But the weight of what he was holding paralyzed him. Slowly, painfully, Gordon turned his head toward the large bay window that faced the street. The sun was setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the manicured lawns of Hawthorne Ridge. It was a neighborhood where nothing happened. It was a neighborhood of silver sedans and minivans, of silent electric mowers and HOA complaints about garbage bin placement. But parked directly in front of our driveway was a vehicle that did not belong. It was a black SUV. Massive. Tinted windows so dark they looked like voids cut into the twilight. It sat idling against the curb, a predator waiting patiently. It was not a neighbor's car. It was not a delivery driver. It had out-of-state plates, and it radiated an authority that made the Honda Civic in our driveway look like a toy. As Gordon watched, frozen in his recliner, the rear door of the SUV opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a charcoal wool coat that absorbed the dying light. He moved with a heavy, deliberate grace. He did not look at the house numbers. He knew exactly where he was. Then the passenger door opened and a woman stepped out. She was sharp, holding a leather briefcase against her side like a shield. She wore a suit that cost more than Gordon made in a month. She adjusted her glasses and looked up at our window. Gordon stood up. His legs hit the footrest of the recliner and he stumbled. He clutched the papers to his chest, crinkling them, ruining the crisp edges. "Who are they?" Gordon whispered. He backed away from the window as if the glass offered no protection. "Addison." "Who are they?" He looked back at the papers in his hand, then out at the man walking up our driveway. The man was walking straight toward the front door. He was not rushing. He walked with the terrifying patience of someone who has waited 19 years to arrive. Gordon turned to me, his face a mask of panic. "You call them off. You tell them to leave. I took you in. I fed you. I gave you a roof." I watched the man outside reach the bottom step of our porch. I watched the woman with the briefcase check her watch. "I did not come here for affection," I said. My voice was clear, cutting through his rising hysteria. "I came here to collect what belongs to me." Gordon opened his mouth to scream, to bargain, to lie. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house, cheerful and bright. A chime designed to announce guests and friends. In that living room, it sounded like a gavel coming down. Gordon froze. He looked at the door. He looked at me. He looked at the window. He was a trapped animal. We stood there in the silence that followed the chime. The $10 bill still lying on the floor between us. The gap between the father he pretended to be and the daughter I actually was, finally closing. But to understand why a 19-year-old girl would serve her stepfather with legal papers instead of blowing out candles, and to understand why the man standing on my porch made Gordon Hale look like he was about to faint, we have to go back. We have to go back to the beginning, before the lawyers, before the SUV, before I learned that love in this house was just a transaction waiting to be audited. If you have ever been made to feel like a liability in the one place you were supposed to be safe, If you have ever been treated like a burden in your own home, go ahead and comment same below because I understand. And I am about to show you exactly how I balance the books. If you walked into the living room of our house on Elmwood Drive prior to my 19th birthday, you would see a framed photograph on the mantel. It was a professional studio portrait, the kind families wear matching denim and white linen shirts for, standing barefoot on a fake beach backdrop. In the center stood Gordon, looking strong and paternal with his hand resting on the shoulder of his biological daughter, Kylie. Kylie was smiling that bright, unburdened smile of a child who has never had to wonder if she belonged. And then there was me, Addison. I was standing slightly to the left, my smile polite, my posture stiff. If you looked closely, really closely, you could see the gap between my shoulder and Gordon's arm. It was only 2 in of empty space. But in our house, those 2 in were a canyon. My mother, Marion Stanton, died in a highway collision when I was 12 years old. It was raining that night. Slick, miserable Tuesday in November. And the police officer who came to the door held his hat in his hands like he was afraid he might crush it. That was the night my childhood officially ended. And my tenure as a guest in Gordon Hale's house began. Gordon was my mother's husband, but he was never my father. When she died, the court paperwork shifted and he became my legal guardian on paper. It was the right thing to do. He was the stepfather. He had a stable job in mid-level management. He owned the house to the neighbors. He was a saint for taking in a grieving preteen girl when he already had a daughter of his own to raise. And that was the problem. He was perfect on paper. Gordon never hit me. He never starved me. He never locked me in the basement. If you looked at my life from the outside, you would see a girl who had a warm bed, new clothes at the start of every school year, and food on the table every night at 6 o'clock sharp. But abuse does not always leave bruises. Sometimes it looks like a ledger where every interaction is calculated, and you are always in the red. The distinction between Kylie and me was not subtle, but it was quiet. It was built into the architecture of our daily lives. Kylie was his blood. I was the attachment. Kylie got the new iPhone because she needed it for social standing at school. I got her old one because it was functional. Kylie was allowed to go to sleepaway camp in the summer for 3 weeks. I was told that summer was a time for productivity, and that I should focus on reading the reading list for the next grade. It was a hierarchy of affection. Kylie was the resident. I was the tenant who had overstayed my lease. The weirdness started with the mail. In most houses, checking the mailbox is a chore nobody wants. In our house, it was Gordon's jurisdiction. He treated that metal box at the end of the driveway like a vault. He knew exactly when the mail carrier arrived, usually around 11 in the morning. If he was at work, he had a lock on the box, and the key lived on a ring attached to his belt loop. He never left it on the counter. He never hung it by the door. When I was 16, I beat him to the mail once. It was a Saturday and he was in the backyard mowing the lawn. I saw the mail carrier shove a bundle of envelopes into the slot and I walked out to grab them, thinking I was being helpful. I had just pulled the stack out when I heard the lawnmower cut off abruptly. By the time I turned around, Gordon was sprinting across the grass. He was not running like a man happy to see his mail. He was running like a man whose house was on fire. He snatched the bundle from my hands with a force that nearly knocked me over. He did not hit me, but his chest was heaving and his eyes were wild. "I got it," he said, breathless. "Do not touch my mail. Addison, I have told you. Important documents get lost." I looked at him confused. It was mostly coupons and a catalog. What document was so important that he had to sprint across the lawn? After that, I started noticing the other things. When I was applying for scholarships during my junior year, I filled out forms for hours. I wrote essays about losing my mother, about resilience, about wanting to study architectural history. I gathered my transcripts and my recommendations. I put everything in a large manila envelope and left it on the hall table for Gordon to mail, as he insisted on handling all outgoing post to ensure proper postage. 2 months later, I received an email from the scholarship committee stating my application had never been received. When I confronted Gordon, he looked up from his newspaper, his face a mask of mild concern. "I must have misplaced it," he said, shrugging. "Or maybe the post office lost it. You know how they are. It is a shame, Addison. But maybe it is for the best. State college is expensive enough without you dreaming about private universities." He did not apologize. He did not offer to call them. He just turned the page of his newspaper. It was the money talk that truly solidified the wall between us. Whenever I asked about college savings or insurance or anything financial, the door slammed shut. "Money is for adults to worry about," he would say. "You have a roof over your head. I am feeding you. Is that not enough?" He made me feel greedy for asking. He made me feel like an ingrate. He would sigh, a long-suffering sound, and look at the ceiling as if asking God for patience with this demanding orphan he had been saddled with. But the cracks in his fortress began to show during the spring of my senior year. I was sitting in the guidance counselor's office at school. Mrs. Gable was a kind woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a desk cluttered with college brochures. We were filling out the FAFSA, the Federal Student Aid Form. It was tedious work, entering tax information and social security numbers. Mrs. Gable frowned at her computer screen. She tapped a key, then adjusted her glasses. "Addison," she said, looking up at me, "we need to declare the trust."
Ich sterte her.
"The what?" "The trust fund," she said, pointing to a line on the screen. "The system is flagging a mismatch. It says here under your social security number that you are the beneficiary of an irrevocable trust, the Evergrey Trust." I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. I had never heard those words before. Ever. It sounded like a funeral home or a depressing novel. "I do not have a trust. I said my mom died without a will. Gordon said she left nothing but debt." Mrs. Gable turned the screen toward me. There it was. A digital footprint. A trust established 7 years ago, shortly after my mother died. The assets were significant. I did not understand the numbers fully then, but I saw zeros. A lot of zeros. "Are you sure you do not have access to this, Mrs. Gable asked, her voice lowering. "'Cause if you do, it changes your financial aid eligibility. But if you do not, if I do not," I said slowly, realizing the implication, "then where is it?" That night, dinner was quiet. Kylie was talking about her prom dress, rambling on about whether she should wear blue or emerald green. Gordon was nodding, playing the part of the indulgent father. I waited until Kylie left the table to take a call from her boyfriend. "Gordon," I said. I kept my voice even. He looked up, chewing a piece of steak. "What?" "I was filling out financial aid forms today," I said. "The school counselor mentioned something about an account, a trust fund, the Evergrey Trust." The reaction was instantaneous. Gordon stopped chewing for a second. He did not move. It was as if I had pointed a gun at him across the roast potatoes. Then he forced a laugh. It was a dry, hollow sound. "That woman is incompetent," he said, waving his fork dismissively. "There was a small life insurance policy from your mother. A pittance. I put it in a savings account for your rainy days. It is hardly a trust fund. These school bureaucrats use big words to scare kids." He took a sip of water, but I saw his hand tremble. Just a fraction. "But she said it was irrevocable," I pressed. "She said it was under my name." Gordon slammed his glass down. Water sloshed onto the tablecloth. "Enough, Addison," he snapped. His face was suddenly red. I have managed your life for 7 years. I have kept you clothed and fed. Do you think I am stealing from you? Is that it? You think I am a thief? I did not say that. I said quietly. He stood up, wiping his mouth with his napkin. I am done with this conversation. You focus on your grades. Leave the finances to the people who actually pay the bills. He stormed out of the kitchen. 10 minutes later, the Wi-Fi in the house went down. I walked out into the hallway and saw Gordon by the router pulling cables. He looked at me, his eyes cold and hard. Resetting it, he muttered, "Go to your room." Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I heard his heavy footsteps coming down the hall. My door opened. I feigned sleep, keeping my breathing steady. Gordon walked into my room. He did not turn on the light. He stood by my desk for a long time. I could hear him shuffling papers. He was searching. He was checking to see if I had brought home any printouts, any proof. He opened my backpack. He unzipped the front pocket. He was looking for what I knew. He left after 5 minutes, closing the door softly. He thought he was safe. He thought I was just a confused teenager who would believe his anger was righteous. He thought that by cutting the internet and gaslighting me at the dinner table, he had squashed the bug. But he was wrong. You might think I was just suspicious. You might think I was a paranoid girl making up stories because I felt unloved. You would be wrong. I did not just suspect. I knew because 3 days before that dinner, while Gordon was at work and Kylie was at practice, I had found something. I was not looking for it. I was looking for a spare battery for my calculator in the junk closet beneath the stairs, the one place Gordon never cleaned because it was full of my mother's old things that he could not be bothered to throw away. Behind a loose baseboard tucked inside a rusty metal tin that used to hold Danish butter cookies was a folded piece of paper. It was not a printout. It was a letter, and it was not addressed to Gordon. It was addressed to me. And the handwriting on the envelope was not Gordon's blocky scroll. It was elegant, looped, and painfully familiar. It was the handwriting of a woman who had been dead for 7 years. I had taken that paper. I had read it. And then I had done the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. I put the empty tin back, fixed the baseboard, and walked out of the closet with a smile on my face. Gordon thought he had buried the truth. He did not realize that the truth has a way of waiting in the dark, just looking for a hand to pull it into the light. And he definitely did not realize that the hand would belong to the quiet, obedient girl he had ignored for the better part of a decade. To understand the weight of the envelope, I handed Gordon on my birthday. You have to understand the night I found the ammunition inside it. It was not a sudden discovery where a beam of light shone down from heaven to guide me. It was dusty. It smelled like cedar and mothballs, and it happened because I was trying to find a place to hide my own diary. The closet under the stairs was an architectural afterthought, a wedge of space that Gordon had surrendered to the memory of my mother, because he could not be bothered to sort through it. He called it the storage, but I called it the museum. It was filled with her coats, boxes of her paperback novels, and plastic bins of winter decorations that we never used anymore because Kylie preferred modern store-bought ornaments. I was crouching in the back behind a stack of National Geographic magazines from 1999, pushing against the rear wooden panel. I had found a loose board there years ago, a small gap between the drywall and the frame where a teenager could hide things she did not want her stepfather to see. Usually, it held a forbidden stash of candy or a few dollars I had skimmed from grocery change. But that day, when I pulled the panel back, my fingers brushed against something cold. It was not the wood stud. It was metal. I pulled the board harder, ignoring the splinter that dug into my thumb. Wedged deep in the insulation, wrapped in a layer of heavy-duty plastic garbage bags to keep out the damp, was a box. It was not the Danish cookie tin I had found the initial note in. This was what the note had been pointing to. It was a heavy gray metal lockbox, the kind you buy at an office supply store to keep petty cash safe. I dragged it out, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The plastic crinkled loudly in the silence of the house. I froze, listening for Gordon's footsteps upstairs, but the television was still blaring a baseball game. I was safe for now. I stripped away the plastic. The box was scuffed, and a piece of masking tape was stuck across the top. On it, in the familiar looping script that made my throat tight, were 4 words. Open when you are older. There was no key. I sat there on the floor of the closet, surrounded by the smell of my mother's old wool coats, and stared at the box. I knew I could not open it here. Gordon had a sixth sense for secrets. If I tried to smash it open, he would hear. If I left it out, he would find it. I shoved the box into my backpack, covered it with my gym clothes, and walked out the front door. I am going to Tessa's. I yelled toward the living room. Gordon grunted something that sounded like a dismissal. He did not care where I went as long as I was not asking him for money. Tessa Vaughn lived 3 streets over. She was the kind of friend who did not ask questions until she had handed you a soda and closed her bedroom door. We had been friends since the 3rd grade, bonded by a shared hatred of dodgeball and a love for true crime documentaries. When I dumped the heavy metal box onto her tie-dye bedspread, she did not gasp. She just raised an eyebrow. "Okay," she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Is that stolen or is it cursed?" "It is my mom's," I said. "I need to open it. And I do not have a key." Tessa looked at the lock. It was a simple wafer tumbler lock. Not exactly Fort Knox, but sturdy enough to keep a curious 12-year-old out. We did not use magic. We did not have a laser cutter. We did what any 2 broke teenagers in the 21st century would do. We opened a laptop and searched for a tutorial on how to pick a lock with household items. It took us 40 minutes. It was not glamorous. It involved 2 bent paper clips, a flathead screwdriver from Tessa's dad's garage, and a lot of swearing. My hands were sweating so much I could barely hold the tension wrench steady. "Come on," Tessa whispered, leaning over my shoulder. "You have got it." Apply pressure to the bottom. I felt a tiny click, then another. The cylinder turned. The latch popped open with a metallic snap that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet room. We both jumped back, staring at the lid as if a ghost were about to fly out. In a way, one did. I reached out and lifted the lid. Inside, there was no money. There were no diamonds. There was just a stack of papers organized with a precision that reminded me that before she was a victim of a car accident, Marianne Stanton had been a paralegal who prided herself on details. The first thing on top was a letter. It was sealed in a white envelope with my name, Addison, written on the front. Picked it up. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. "Read it," Tessa said softly. "I'm right here." I tore the envelope. The date on the letter was 3 months before she died. "My dearest Addison, if you are reading this, 2 things have happened. 1. I am not there to tell you this myself. 2. You are old enough to understand that love is complicated, but protection is absolute. I love Gordon. He has been good to us in many ways, but I also know that Gordon loves control. He likes to be the captain of the ship, and he does not like it when the crew asks where they are going. I have seen how he looks at our finances. He is not bad, but he is weak when it comes to money. He sees it as a scoreboard. I have set up something for you, not through Gordon, around him. It is called the Evergrey Trust. It is everything I have saved. Everything from your grandmother and the insurance payouts that will come if anything happens to me. It is yours. Not for the house. Not for his bills. Yours. Gordon will be the guardian. I cannot change that without a fight I do not have the energy for right now. But guardians can be watched. I stopped reading. I could not breathe. She knew. She had seen the way he hoarded the mail, the way he stressed over credit card bills, the way he resented expenses. She had known he might turn into the man he eventually became. I put the letter down and looked at the rest of the contents. There was a copy of my birth certificate. It looked old, yellowed at the edges. I scanned it, looking for the usual details. Name: Addison Marie Stanton. Date of birth: August 14th. Mother: Marianne Stanton. I looked at the line for father. It was blank. I mean, completely blank. No unknown. No name crossed out. Just an empty line. I stared at it. I had always known my biological father wasn't in the picture. Mom had said he left before I was born. But seeing the empty space on the legal document felt different. It meant I was legally untethered. It meant Gordon had no claim to me by blood. And no other man did either. I was entirely hers and now entirely alone. Why is that in there? Tessa asked, looking at the certificate. To prove who I am not, I said, my voice sounding hollow. To prove I do not belong to anyone but her. Beneath the birth certificate was a business card. It was thick cream-colored cardstock. Expensive and serious. Ren Caldwell. Ska. Estate trust attorney. The Caldwell firm. On the back of the card in my mother's handwriting was a note. If Gordon avoids the subject or if he tells you there is no money, do not argue. Call Ren. Give him the code word Bluebird. And finally, at the bottom of the box was a single sheet of notebook paper with a list of account numbers and a summary of the trust's initial value. I looked at the number at the bottom of the page. I had to read it 3 times. It was not $1 million. We were not secret royalty. But it was enough. It was enough to pay for college. It was enough to put a down payment on a house. It was enough to buy freedom. It was 6 figures. And for the last 7 years, whenever I asked for $20 for a school field trip, Gordon had sighed and told me we were tight. I felt a hot, sharp rage bubbling up in my chest. It was not the sadness of grief anymore. It was the fury of betrayal. He had known. He had known this whole time that I was not a charity case. He had known I had my own safety net. And he had hidden it, likely draining it slowly while making me feel guilty for eating his cereal. He is stealing it. I whispered. Tessa. He is stealing it. Tessa picked up the paper with the numbers. If he is the trustee, he has access. But he has to answer to someone, right? I looked at the business card again. Ren Caldwell. We need to confront him, Tessa said. Her jaw set. We need to march over there and know, I said sharply. Tessa stopped. I thought about the way Gordon acted when I mentioned the trust word before. The way he cut the Wi-Fi. The way he searched my room. If I walked in there waving these papers, he would destroy them. He would gaslight me. He would say they were old, invalid drafts. He would find a way to make me the villain. He is too good at talking, I said. If I speak, he wins. He spins everything. He will make me look like an ungrateful brat. And he will hide the money before I can touch it. Then what do we do? Tessa asked. I looked at the business card. I looked at the father line that was blank. I looked at the warning my mother had written from the grave. We go silent, I said. We do not ask him another question about money. We do not ask about college. We act like I believe him. We act like I am the stupid obedient daughter he thinks he trained. And then we build a trap, I said. We sat in Tessa's room for another hour making copies of every document on her printer. We hid the metal box in the back of Tessa's closet, behind her collection of winter boots. I was not taking that box back to Gordon's house. At 11:45 that night, we went out to Tessa's car. It was a beat-up Honda Civic that smelled like vanilla air freshener and French fries. We sat in the driveway, the engine off. The windows rolled up to block out the chirping crickets. I held the business card in one hand and Tessa's phone in the other. I did not want to use my phone. Gordon checked the bill. It is almost midnight. Tessa whispered. No lawyer's going to answer. My mom picked him. I said if she picked him, he will answer. I dialed the number. It was a local area code, but I had never seen the exchange before. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up. I was about to accept that this was a dead end, that maybe Ren Caldwell had retired or died, or that my mother had been wrong to trust him. Then the line clicked. There was no sleepy fumble, no groggy. Hello. The voice on the other end was wide awake. It was deep, crisp, and calm, contrasting sharply with the late hour. It sounded like a man who was sitting at a desk, waiting for a specific alarm to ring. This is Caldwell, he said. My throat went dry. I looked at Tessa. She widened her eyes, urging me to speak. Mr. Caldwell, I started, my voice shaking slightly. My name is Addison Hughes. My mother was Mary Ann Stanton. There was a silence on the other line. It was not an empty silence. It was a heavy, loaded silence. The sound of a person putting down a pen and leaning back in a chair. I gripped the phone tighter. She told me to say Bluebird. The silence stretched for another 2 seconds. I held my breath. Then Ren Caldwell spoke. He did not ask who I was. He did not ask how I got the number. He said 5 words that made the hair on my arm stand up. 5 words that confirmed that the war between Gordon and me had started a long time ago, and I was just now arriving at the battlefield. You finally called, he said. I have been waiting for 7 years. Addison. The office of Ron Caldwell was located in a building that smelled of old leather and expensive coffee, a stark contrast to the lemon-scented cleaning spray that permeated Gordon's house. I sat in a chair that probably cost more than my first car. My hands folded tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. Beside me, Tessa looked like she was trying to memorize the room for a screenplay, her eyes darting from the floor to ceiling bookshelves to the view of the city skyline. Ren Caldwell was not what I expected. Based on his voice over the phone, I had pictured an elderly man, perhaps someone my mother's age or older. Instead, the man sitting across the mahogany desk was sharp, perhaps in his late 40s, with graying temples and eyes that looked like they could spot a typo from across the room. He did not offer us candy. He did not offer condolences. He offered clarity. The Evergrey Trust, Caldwell said, placing a thick file on the desk between us. It was established by Mary Ann Stanton 7 years ago. The initial assets came from a life insurance settlement and the sale of a property in her name that you likely did not know existed. The beneficiary is you, Addison Hughes. The trustee, temporarily appointed until you reach the age of majority, is Gordon Hale. He opened the file. It was not a chaotic mess like Gordon's pile of bills on the kitchen counter. It was a forensic timeline of my life translated into dollars and cents. A trust is a simple concept, Caldwell explained, his voice even. Think of it as a vault. The trustee holds the key, but they do not own what is inside. They have a fiduciary duty to act solely in your best interest. They are allowed to use funds for your health, your education, and your maintenance. That is the standard. He spun the file around so I could see the spreadsheet on top. However, he continued, trustees are required to keep receipts. They are required to justify every penny that leaves the vault. And when I requested the quarterly reports from Mr. Hale over the last few years, I began to notice irregularities. I looked at the columns. There were dates, transaction codes, and amounts. Here, Caldwell pointed to a line item from 3 years ago. Withdrawal $4,000. Reason educational support computer equipment. I stared at the line. 3 years ago, I was a sophomore. I was using a laptop that I had bought from a senior for $50 because Gordon said new computers were a luxury. I never got a computer, I said quietly. Caldwell nodded. He did not look surprised. He moved his finger down the list. Here. Withdrawal $2,500. Reason orthodontic work. I ran my tongue over my teeth. They were straight enough. But I had never had braces. I had never even seen an orthodontist. No. I said. I have never had braces. And here. Caldwell said. His finger landing on a cluster of withdrawals from last summer, labeled as Summer Enrichment Program and travel expenses for beneficiary totaling roughly $12,000. I laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. Last summer, I worked double shifts at the ice cream parlor. The only place I traveled was to the bank to deposit my minimum wage checks. Caldwell leaned back in his chair. That is what I suspected. These are what we call unsubstantiated disbursements. In plain English. Addison. He is bleeding the account dry. He is withdrawing money, labeling it as being for your benefit to satisfy the bank's basic algorithms, and then pocketing the cash. I looked at the total at the bottom of the page. The number made my stomach turn over. It was not just a few hundred here and there. It was tens of thousands. It was enough to pay for 4 years of college. It was enough to start a business. It was enough to leave Hawthorne Ridge and never look back. He stole it. Tessa whispered, her voice full of awe and horror. He actually stole it. He embezzled it. Caldwell corrected. The distinction matters legally. He used his position of power to misappropriate funds. But here is the problem. Caldwell pulled another document from the folder. This one looked different. It was a legal form. Standard boilerplate text. But at the bottom there were signatures. You turned 18 last August, Caldwell said. Under the original terms of the Evergrey Trust, the trusteeship was supposed to dissolve upon your 18th birthday. Control should have transferred to you, or at the very least you should have become a co-trustee with signing power. That is the standard setup. He pushed the paper closer to me. So tell me, Addison, do you remember signing this? I looked at the document. The header read consent to extend trusteeship and waiver of accounting. Below that, in dense legal jargon, it essentially said that I, Addison Hughes, being of sound mind and legal age, voluntarily agreed that Gordon Hale should remain the sole trustee with full control over the assets until I turned 25. It also said that I waived my right to see detailed monthly statements, and at the bottom, right above the date, August 15th, the day after my 18th birthday, was a signature. Addison Hughes. I stared at the blue ink. My breath caught in my throat. That is my signature, I whispered. It looks exactly like my signature. Did you sign it? Caldwell asked. His eyes were like lasers drilling into me. Did you knowingly sit down, read this document, and agree to let him keep control for another 7 years? No, I said, my voice rising. I didn't even know the trust existed until 3 days ago. How could I sign away rights I didn't know I had? Then it is a forgery, Tessa said. He traced it. Maybe, Caldwell said. Or maybe it is something else. Look at the date. August 15th. Think back the week you turned 18. Did Gordon give you anything to sign? Anything at all? School forms, doctor's notes, insurance papers. I closed my eyes, trying to transport myself back to the kitchen table 8 months ago. It was the week after my birthday. The air conditioning was broken and the house was sweltering. Gordon was in a bad mood because of the repair costs. Flashback. I was eating a bowl of cereal. Gordon came into the kitchen, a stack of papers in his hand. He looked harried, wiping sweat from his forehead. Addison, I need you to sign these now, he had said, dropping a thick pile of documents onto the sticky table. What are they? I had asked. Car insurance. He snapped. Since you are 18 now, The premium changes and the health insurance renewal and the liability waiver for the school trip you want to go on. Just sign the tabs I marked. I have to get this to the agent by 5 o'clock, or you are driving uninsured tomorrow. He was tapping his foot. He was looking at his watch. He created a sense of urgency, a whirlwind of administrative panic. He flipped the pages for me, pointing to the little yellow sign here. Sticky flags. Sign here and here and here. I didn't read them. Why would I? He was my dad. Well, my stepdad. He handled the paperwork. I just wanted to finish my cereal and get to my shift at the ice cream parlor. I signed where he pointed. I signed my name over and over again. In flashback. I opened my eyes and looked at Caldwell. I felt cold all over. The stack. I said. He made me sign a stack of insurance papers. He said it was for the car. He flipped the pages for me. Caldwell nodded slowly. The stack technique. It is the oldest trick in the book. He buried the trust extension in the middle of a pile of mundane bureaucratic forms. He relied on your trust in your youth to get you to sign your own warrant. So it is legal. Asked. My voice trembling. Because I signed it. He gets to keep the money. He gets to keep stealing. Caldwell leaned forward. The professionalism in his face hardened into something sharper. Something dangerous. On the surface. Looks legal. He said. But in the eyes of a court, obtaining a signature through misrepresentation is fraud. If we can prove he failed to explain the document or that he misled you about its nature, the document is void. And more importantly, Addison, the existence of this document proves intent. Intent. If he was just a bad money manager, he could claim incompetence. Caldwell explained. He could say he lost the receipts. He could say he made bad investments. But this tricking you into signing an extension the day after you turned 18, that proves he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he had to stop you from seeing the bank statements. He knew he had to keep the lid on the jar. This document is not his shield. Addison. It is the weapon we will use to slit his throat in court. I looked at the signature again. I hated it. I hated that naive girl who had sat at the kitchen table and signed her name just to make Gordon stop tapping his foot. I wanted to shake her. So, what do we do? I asked. Do we arrest him? We are not the police, Caldwell said. And the police are slow. If we file a criminal report today, Gordon will know by tomorrow. He will liquidate whatever is left in the account, hide the cash, and claim he spent it on intangible assets. By the time the district attorney looks at the case, the money will be gone. He opened a drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was an authorization form. This is an authorization for the bank, Caldwell said. Since you are the beneficiary and over 18, you have the right to demand a forensic accounting audit. Regardless of that extension document, the bank does not know about the fraud yet. They just know Gordon is the trustee. But if you sign this, I can walk into the bank tomorrow as your counsel and freeze the account. I can demand the records. I can lock him out. Picked up the pen. It was heavy. A nice metal pen. Not the cheap plastic ones we had at home. If I sign this, I said, he will know. He will know the moment the bank freezes his access card. Caldwell agreed. Which brings us to the choice. He clasped his hands on the desk. Option 1. He said. We send him a letter. We tell him we know. We offer a settlement. He pays back what he stole if he still has it and steps down quietly. It is clean. It keeps the family drama out of the public eye. You get some money back and you walk away. I thought about Gordon. I thought about the way he threw the $10 at me. I thought about the way he made me feel small for 7 years. And option 2, I asked. Caldwell's eyes glinted. Option 2 is the nuclear option. We do not warn him. We freeze the assets first. We file a petition with the probate court to remove him for cause. We accuse him of breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and embezzlement. We bring in forensic accountants to trace every latte and every car payment he made with your mother's money. We strip him naked in front of a judge. It will be messy. It will destroy his reputation. It will likely bankrupt him if he has spent the money, but it ensures he never holds a position of trust again. He looked at me, waiting. You have to decide. Addison, do you want to win quickly and move on? Or do you want to expose him layer by layer until there is nowhere left for him to hide? I looked at the document with the forged signature one last time. I remembered the feeling of being a burden. I remembered the feeling of gratitude I forced myself to feel when he bought me second-hand shoes. I looked at Caldwell. I do not want a settlement, I said. He didn't just take the money. He took the truth. He made me think I was poor and lucky to have him. I signed the authorization form. My signature was different now. Harder. Sharper. I want him to feel it, I said. I want him to feel exactly as helpless as I did. I want option 2. Caldwell took the paper. He didn't smile. But he nodded. A gesture of professional respect. Very well, he said. Then we need to prepare, because when we pull this trigger, Gordon isn't just going to be angry. He is going to be desperate. And a desperate man is dangerous. He checked his watch. We need to time this perfectly, he said. When is the next time you can guarantee he will be distracted? When will his guard be down? I thought about the calendar. Next Tuesday. I said it is my 19th birthday. He always makes a big show of ignoring it. But he will be home. He never misses his evening TV. Caldwell pulled out a notepad. Perfect. A birthday surprise. Now, let's talk about the team I'm going to assemble, because if we are going to do this, we are not walking in there alone. As he began to list names, a forensic accountant, a process server, a bank compliance officer, I realized that for the first time in my life, I wasn't just Addison the orphan. I was Addison the client. And I was about to become Addison the plaintiff. The consent extension document lay on the desk between us. A testament to Gordon's arrogance. He thought that piece of paper was his safety net. He didn't realize it was the first shovel of dirt for his own grave. The most dangerous person in the world is not the one screaming threats. It is the one pouring your coffee while you sleep. For the next 3 weeks, I became the daughter Gordon Hale had always wanted. I washed the dishes without being asked. I folded the laundry, making sure his shirts were pressed exactly the way he liked, with the creases sharp enough to cut paper. When he came home from work complaining about his incompetent boss or the traffic on the interstate, I listened. I nodded. I offered sympathetic noises at all the right intervals. Good morning, Dad, I would say, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Morning, Addison, he would grunt, not looking up from his tablet. He seemed relaxed. His shoulders, usually tight with the stress of managing his lies, began to lower. He thought he had one. He thought the money talk incident was just a teenage tantrum, a flare-up of rebellion that he had successfully stamped out with his internet-cutting discipline. I even smiled at Kylie when she came home waving a shopping bag from a boutique at the mall, pulling out a pair of suede boots that cost $300. I did not ask where the money came from. They look great on you, I said. Really? The color suits you. Kylie looked at me suspicious for a fleeting second before her vanity took over. I know. Right? Dad said I earned them for getting a B in history. A B in history. $300. I mentally filed that away. That was a withdrawal. That was my money walking around on her feet. But I was not just playing house. I was in training. To catch a white-collar criminal, you do not need a gun or a badge. You need to understand the boring beige bureaucracy of theft. I applied for a part-time job as a filing clerk at a firm called Larkhaven Compliance Services. It was a small, dusty office in the strip mall next to the grocery store. My job was mind-numbing. I spent 4 hours a day scanning invoices, cross-referencing expense reports, and organizing tax documents for small businesses. It was the most boring work imaginable, and I loved every second of it. At Larkhaven, I learned the language of liars. I learned that miscellaneous office supplies was often code for personal groceries. I learned that if an invoice number is out of sequence, you should look closer. I learned that the devil is not in the details. The devil is in the recurrence. I was not hacking Gordon's computer. I did not need to. I just needed to learn how to read the patterns of a man who thinks he is smarter than the system. Every night I went to Tessa's house. We turned her bedroom into a war room. We had a corkboard, but instead of red string and photos of murder victims, we had a timeline. On the left side, we listed Gordon's life events. Tessa was a genius at social media excavation. She scrolled back through Gordon's Facebook, Kylie's Instagram, and even the neighborhood watch page. "Okay," Tessa said, tapping her laptop screen. June 12. 2 years ago. Gordon posts a picture of a much-needed guys' trip to fishing lodges in Montana. I looked at the copy of the trust ledger Caldwell had given me, the messy, incomplete version we had started with. June 14. I read withdrawal of $4,500. Label emergency structural repair attic. He went fishing in the attic. Tessa asked dryly. He billed my trust for a roof repair that never happened, I said, marking the date in red marker. I remember that summer. The roof was fine. He just wanted to go fly fishing. We did this for hours. We matched Kylie's braces, which she actually got. Unlike me, to a withdrawal labeled beneficiary dental surgery. We matched the new leather interior of Gordon's sedan to transportation safety upgrade. But the biggest discovery came when I applied my new Larkhaven skills to a recurring payee. I kept seeing the name Hale Home Improvements LLC on the ledger. It appeared almost every month for the last 4 years. $500 here. $800 there. The memos were always vague. Maintenance. Keep. Landscape management. Tessa, I said, pointing to the name. Google Hale Home Improvements. She typed it in. No website. No Yelp reviews. Just a business registration with the Secretary of State. She clicked on the filing. Registered Agent Gordon Hale. She read. Address. Wait. The address is AP. Box at the UPS store on Main Street. I sat back. The realization hitting me like a physical blow. He created a fake company. I whispered. He is paying himself to fix his own house. He takes money out of the trust, writes a check to Hale Home Improvements, and then deposits it right back into his own personal account. It is laundering. It is washing the money so it looks like a legitimate expense for the estate. That is actually kind of smart, Tessa admitted. It is only smart if nobody checks the work, I said. And for 7 years, nobody did. Gordon was getting sloppy because he was getting comfortable. But even comfortable men have instincts. About a week before my birthday, the atmosphere in the house shifted. Gordon started coming home with a furrowed brow. He would stand by the window looking out at the street, chewing his thumbnail. I wondered if Caldwell had made a move, but I knew the lawyer was waiting for my signal. No, this was something else. Gordon was sensing the end of his term, even though he had that forged extension document. Deep down, he knew that me turning 19 made things fragile. One evening after dinner, he walked into the kitchen while I was drying a pot. He was holding a single sheet of paper. Addison, he said. His voice was too loud, too jovial. I have some great news. I put the pot down. What is it? Dad, I was looking over the finances, he said, leaning against the counter. And I think I can squeeze out a little extra help for you this year. Maybe help you with rent if you decide to move out. or get you a reliable used car. He was dangling a carrot. He was offering me crumbs of my own cake. That would be amazing, I said, keeping my face bright. I just need you to sign this, he said, sliding the paper across the counter. It is just a standard form from my tax guy. It basically says that you acknowledge I have provided housing and support for the last year, and that you are satisfied with the management of your affairs. Just keeps the IRS off my back. I looked at the paper. It was not a tax form. It was a release of liability if I signed it. I was essentially saying everything is fine. Gordon did a great job and I have no complaints. It was a shield. He wanted me to sign away my right to sue him before I even knew I had a reason to. My heart started to hammer. But I forced my hand to stay steady. I picked up the paper, pretending to read it. This seems complicated, I said, scrabbling my brow. It is just boilerplate, he said quickly. Standard legal mumbo-jumbo. Just sign at the bottom. I looked up at him. I widened my eyes, giving him the full innocent daughter stare. If I sign this, I asked softly, does it mean I get to see the trust reports? You know, since it mentions management of affairs. The air in the kitchen vanished. Gordon's smile dropped. The jovial father was gone, replaced by the cold, calculating warden. Why are you obsessed with those reports? He snapped. I told you I handle the money. You do not need to worry your pretty little head about spreadsheets. You have a roof, don't you? You have food. I know, Dad, I said, backing down intentionally. I want to learn for the future. Learn with your own money. He spat. Sign the paper, Addison. Or do not expect a dime for a car. Do not expect anything. He left the paper on the counter and stormed out. I waited until I heard the television turn on in the living room. Then I took the paper. I did not sign it. I folded it and put it in my pocket. It was another piece of evidence. Proved he was trying to coerce me into covering his tracks. That night, I called Caldwell from Tess's car. He's getting nervous, I told him. He tried to get me to sign a liability release. Do not sign it, Caldwell said sharply. I didn't. But I think he knows the clock is ticking. He might try to move the rest of the money. Then we strike first, Caldwell said. We are not waiting for the birthday to start the paper trail. We start it tonight. How? I am emailing you a template, Caldwell said. It is a formal demand for accounting letter addressed to the bank's fraud department. You are going to sign it and email it. We are not copying Gordon. We are alerting the institution that the beneficiary is disputing the transactions. What will happen? I asked. The bank is obligated to freeze suspicious activity immediately upon a credible report, Caldwell explained. They will put a pending review flag on the account. Gordon won't be locked out completely yet. That happens when we serve him. But if he tries to make a large transfer, it will be blocked. I drove to the library to use a public computer, just to be safe. I accessed the document Caldwell sent. It was formal, terrifying, and beautiful. It listed the suspicious transactions, the Hale home improvements payments, the phantom medical bills, the travel expenses. I hit send for 2 days. Nothing happened. The house was quiet. Gordon was still sulking about me not signing the paper, giving me the silent treatment, which honestly was a relief. Then on the morning of my birthday, I checked my secret email account on my phone while I was in the bathroom. There was a reply from the bank. Subject case 4922U Evergrey Trust. Transaction review notification. Dear Hughes, we have received your inquiry regarding the disbursements from the Evergrey Trust. Based on the preliminary information provided, our compliance department has flagged several transactions for immediate review. We have initiated a Level 2 audit. Please be advised that the trustee will be contacted regarding these discrepancies within 48 business hours to provide documentation. I stared at the screen. 48 hours. That meant the clock had started. Sometime in the next 2 days, Gordon was going to get a call from a very serious person at the bank asking why he paid Hale Home Improvements $500 for lawn care in the middle of January. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My face looked the same. I still looked like the girl who wore secondhand sweaters and apologized for taking up space. But behind my eyes, something had hardened. Gordon had thrown $10 at me this morning. He thought that was the end of the transaction. He didn't know that the bank had just flagged him as a potential felon. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and walked out into the hallway. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered. Then I went downstairs to put on the kettle, waiting for the sun to go down, waiting for the black SUV to arrive, and waiting for the moment I could finally hand my father the bill for everything he had taken. The morning of my 19th birthday did not begin with a shout. It began with the smell of cheap vanilla frosting. I walked into the kitchen, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep, expecting the usual cold shoulder or the passive-aggressive silence that had defined the last week. Instead, I found a bakery box sitting in the center of the kitchen table. It was open, revealing a quarter-sheet cake with "Happy Birthday" Addison scrolled in blue icing that was already starting to bleed into the white sponge. Gordon was standing by the coffee maker. He turned when I entered, and for the first time in months, he was smiling. It was not a real smile. It did not reach his eyes, which remained watchful and tight. But it was a performance of a smile. It was the smile of a used car salesman trying to move a vehicle with a leaking transmission before the customer notices the puddle on the floor. "There she is," Gordon said. His voice was warm, almost syrupy. "Happy birthday, kiddo." 19. Big year. I stopped in the doorway, my guard instantly going up. "Thanks, Gordon." "Dad," he corrected gently, pouring a mug of coffee and setting it down in my spot. "It is your birthday. Let's drop the formalities. Sweetheart, come on, sit. Have some cake." "Who says you cannot have sugar for breakfast?" I sat down. The cake looked nauseatingly sweet. The sudden shift in his demeanor was more terrifying than his anger. Anger I could predict. This forced affection felt like a prelude to an ambush. "I know things have been tense lately," Gordon said, leaning against the counter, crossing his ankles. He was wearing his nice casual clothes, a polo shirt tucked into khakis. "We have both said things. We have both been stressed. But I woke up this morning and I thought, life is too short. You are my daughter. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that counts." I took a sip of the coffee. It was weak. "What brought this on my reflection?" he said. "And looking at the future." He pulled a chair out and sat opposite me. He folded his hands on the table, leaning in with a conspiratorial air. "I have been thinking about your independence, Addison. I know you want to move out. I know you want to start your own life. And I want to help you do that." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was not the liability release from before. It was something new. "I want to make you a deal," he said softly. "A family agreement to help you launch." He slid the paper toward me. I looked down. It was a simple contract drafted on his home computer. "Here is what I am proposing," Gordon said, tapping the paper. "I will pay for your apartment for the first 12 months. Rent, utilities, internet, full ride. You pick a place near the community college or wherever you want. I will cover it. $12,000, maybe $15,000 straight from my pocket to your landlord." I looked up at him. "Why?" "Because I want you to be secure," he said. "But in exchange, we need to simplify our administrative lives. This whole trust business, it is a headache. The fees, the lawyers, the paperwork. It is draining the principal. So the deal is I pay your rent for a year. Cash. No questions asked. And in return, you sign a waiver closing the trust administration and transferring the remaining balance, which is very small, mostly administrative dust, to a joint savings account we can both access for emergencies. I stared at him. I did not blink. He was offering me $15,000. According to the spreadsheet hidden under my mattress at Tessa's house, he had drained nearly $140,000 over the last 7 years. He was trying to buy my silence for 10 cents on the dollar. He was trying to get me to sign a document that would legally close the trust, effectively burying the history of his theft. If I signed this, I would be agreeing that the trust was settled, that the accounts were balanced, and that I had no further claims. So, I said slowly, testing the waters, you pay my rent, and I sign a paper saying the trust is done. Empty. It is basically empty anyway, Gordon said quickly, waving a hand. The market has been terrible. Addison. Inflation. Fees. This way you get guaranteed cash. Immediate cash. It is a win-win. He looked at me with desperate, predatory eyes. He needed this. He needed me to sign this paper before the bank's audit department called him. He was trying to plug the dam with a bribe. I will think about it, I said. What is there to think about? Gordon's smile faltered, a flash of irritation breaking through. It is free money. Addison. Do not be difficult just to be difficult. I am not being difficult, I said, keeping my voice level. I am being an adult. Adults read contracts. Before he could press me further, the kitchen door swung open. Kylie breezed in, wearing a silk robe and holding her phone. She was typing furiously, her thumbs flying across the screen. Dad, she said, not even looking at me. Are we still good for the upgrade on the flight to Florida next month? Because Sarah's mom said they are booking Comfort Plus and I cannot be in economy if they are in Comfort Plus? Gordon stiffened. He shot a look at Kylie that could have peeled paint. Kylie. Not now. He hissed. But my ears had perked up. Florida? I asked. We are going to Florida. Kylie looked up realizing I was there. Not we. Dad and I. We are going to look at condos, he said. We might move there before my senior year starts. The silence that followed was absolute. Gordon looked like he had swallowed a lemon. He stood up abruptly, moving to the coffee pot to hide his face. It is just a thought, he muttered, looking at the market. Downsizing. This house is too big for us now. I sat there, the pieces clicking together in my mind like the tumblers of a lock. He was not just trying to cover his tracks. He was cashing out. He was going to sell the house, the only tangible asset left, move to a different state with different homestead laws, and disappear into a retirement community in Florida with whatever money he had siphoned off. And Kylie. The flight upgrade. Wait, I said, a memory surfacing from the ledger I had memorized. Comfort Plus like the trip to Cabo last year. Kylie smirked. That trip was legendary. The villa alone costs more than your car. Kylie. Gordon slammed his mug down on the counter. Coffee splashed over the rim. Go get dressed for school. But I was already doing the math. October 14th. Withdrawal. $3,800. Label emergency medical procedure beneficiary. I looked at Kylie. You went to Cabo in October, right during fall break. Yeah, Kylie said, confused by my sudden interest. Why? No reason. I said, just remembering. Gordon turned around. His face was a mask of panic and rage. He knew that I knew. He could see it in my eyes. The medical emergency money had paid for margaritas and a villa in Mexico. Kylie, sensing the dangerous shift in the atmosphere, grabbed a banana and retreated from the kitchen without another word. We were alone again. The birthday cake sat between us. A sugary lie. You are selling the house, I said. It was not a question. Gordon leaned over the table. The good dad mask was gone completely now. His eyes were hard, flinty, and cruel. I am doing what is best for this family, he said. And you are part of this family, Addison. Whether you like it or not, if I go down, if you start digging into things you do not understand, you are not just hurting me. You are hurting Kylie. You are destroying your own future. How am I destroying my future? I asked. By asking for my own money. By making yourself a pariah. He hissed. You think people will hire a girl who sued her own father? You think the world likes a snitch? You take the deal, Addison. You take the rent money. You sign the paper and we part ways cleanly. Or what? Or you find out what it is like to really be on your own. He threatened. No safety net. No references. And I will spend every last dime of that trust on lawyers to bury you in court until you are 40 years old. He was using the oldest trick in the gaslighting handbook. Make the victim feel like the aggressor. Make the person asking for justice feel like they are the one causing the problem. I looked at him. I saw the sweat beading on his upper lip. He was terrified. He was not threatening me from a position of power. He was threatening me from a position of absolute desperation. The extension. I said softly. Gordon blinked. What? The document? I said. The one that says I agreed to let you keep control until I'm 25. The one dated the day after my 18th birthday. His face went gray. I didn't sign that, Gordon. I said. I remember that day. I signed insurance papers. I signed school forms. I never signed a trust extension. Gordon stared at me. For a second, I thought he might hit me. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he didn't strike. Instead, he deflected. Who have you been talking to? He demanded. His voice was low. Dangerous. Who is feeding you this garbage? Is it that friend of yours, Tessa? It does not matter who I talk to, I said. It matters that the signature is a fraud. I signed that to help you, he shouted. Losing control. To protect you from yourself. You are a child. You would have blown that money on nonsense. I invested it. I managed it. You spent it on Cabo, I said. And on a fake company called Hale Home Improvements. Gordon froze. The air left the room. He looked at me with pure unadulterated shock. He had no idea I had found the shell company. That was his secret vault. His deepest layer of protection. Who told you that? He whispered. I didn't answer. I just looked at him. My silence was a weapon. It grew in the room. Heavy and suffocating. He waited for me to explain. To yell. To give him an opening to argue. But I gave him nothing. I just sat there. My hands folded next to the birthday cake. Addison, he barked. Answer me. I stood up. I am going to school, I said calmly. Happy birthday to me. I walked out of the kitchen. I felt his eyes boring into my back. I felt the vibration of his panic radiating through the floorboards. I got into my car. The rusty sedan I had bought with my own wages and drove 2 blocks before pulling over. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't grip the wheel. I gasped for air. The adrenaline finally crashing through my system. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ren Caldwell. We have movement. The bank just alerted me. He tried to initiate a wire transfer of $50,000 to an offshore account 10 minutes ago. The bank blocked it because of our letter. He is burning the furniture to heat the house. Addison. He knows it is over. Be careful tonight. I looked at the phone. Gordon had tried to empty the account 10 minutes ago. Right while I was sitting there. Right while he was offering me the rent deal. He was looking me in the eye, smiling, offering me peanuts. While under the table, he was trying to rob the bank vault one last time. He wasn't just a bad father. He was a cornered rat. And tonight, I was going to close the trap. I drove straight from the confrontation in the kitchen to the Caldwell firm. My hands were still gripping the steering wheel tight enough to turn my knuckles white, and the adrenaline from Gordon's threat was buzzing under my skin like a hive of angry bees. He was terrified. He was desperate. And a desperate man makes mistakes. But he also causes damage. When I walked into Ren Caldwell's office, the atmosphere was different than before. The blinds were drawn against the afternoon sun, casting the room in a serious, heavy twilight. There was no spreadsheet on the desk this time. Instead, there was a small, dusty cardboard box. Caldwell did not tell me to sit down. He just watched me close the door. He tried to bribe me, I said, my voice shaking slightly. He offered to pay my rent for a year if I signed a waiver closing the trust. He called it a family agreement. Caldwell nodded slowly, as if he had expected exactly this move. That is the standard play for an embezzler who knows the walls are closing in. He is trying to buy a release of liability with money he probably does not even have. But Addison, the bank audit is already running. He can offer you the moon, but he cannot stop the machine we started. He tapped the cardboard box on his desk. However, Caldwell said, his voice dropping an octave, in the process of preparing the case for your birthday intervention, it is not financial. Well, not entirely. I walked over to the chair and sat down. What is it? Caldwell opened the box. He pulled out a stack of envelopes. They were old. The paper was yellowed and the corners were soft. They were bundled together with a rubber band. We ran a background check on all potential conflicts of interest, Caldwell said. And we found a secondary fund. It is called the Arden Education Fund. It was established 14 years ago. It is distinct from the Evergrey Trust. It has been sitting in a separate account, untouched. Acrewing interest. I have never heard of it, I said. You wouldn't have, Caldwell said, because every notification regarding its existence was sent to your legal guardian, and every attempt by the grantor to contact you was intercepted. He slid the stack of letters across the desk. I picked up the top one. It was addressed to Addison Hughes. The postmark was from 12 years ago, shortly after my mother died. Across the front of the envelope, in aggressive thick red marker, were the words, "Return to sender. Addressee unknown." I recognized the handwriting, the sharp slant of the letters, the way the R was hooked. It was Gordon's handwriting. He sent them back, I whispered. Look at the others, Caldwell said. I flipped through them. There were dozens birthday cards, Christmas cards, letters with official law firm return addresses, all of them marked refused or no contact. Gordon hadn't just thrown them away. He had actively aggressively rejected them to ensure the sender stopped trying. Who is Miles Arden? Asked. Reading the return name on the envelopes, Caldwell looked at the door to the waiting room. He is the man who set up the education fund. He is an architect based in Chicago, and he is the man whose name should have been on your birth certificate. The world stopped spinning for a second. I looked at the blank line on the copy of my birth certificate in my mind. He's my father. I asked. Biologically. Yet, Caldwell said. Legally. He has no rights. Your mother and he separated before you were born. It was complicated as these things often are. But when she died, he tried to reach out. He tried to offer support. Gordon Hale blocked him at the door, blocked him at the mailbox, and threatened him with harassment suits if he came near the property. Gordon told me my father was dead, I said. The lie felt heavier than the stolen money. Money is just paper. Father is a history. He told me he died in a work accident when I was a baby. He lied. Caldwell said simply. Miles Arden is very much alive. In fact, he is in the conference room right now. I stood up. My legs felt like water. Here. I told him we were moving forward with the case against Gordon. Caldwell said. I needed his deposition regarding the Arden Fund. He flew in this morning. I can't meet him. I stammered. I look like a mess. I am not ready. Addison. Caldwell said gently. He does not want a reunion scene from a movie. He wants to help you bury the man who kept you from him. I took a deep breath. I thought about the man in the black SUV from my vision of the future. The man who would stand on my lawn while Gordon pawed. Okay, I said. Caldwell opened the side door to the conference room. Miles Arden was standing by the window looking out at the city traffic. He was tall with broad shoulders and a posture that seemed etched from granite. He wore a dark charcoal coat that looked expensive but practical. When he turned around, I saw my own eyes looking back at me. He did not rush forward to hug me. He did not cry. He stayed where he was, respecting the space between us, a space that Gordon had artificially maintained for years. Addison, he said. His voice was deep, growly, and careful. Mr. Arden, I said. He looked down at the table between us. There was another stack of letters there, the ones that had been returned to him. I was made to be late, he said. It was a strange phrase, but I understood it immediately. He wasn't late because he didn't care. He was late because he had been forced to wait. He reached out and touched the stack of returned mail. I sent a letter every month for the first 2 years, he said. Then on your birthdays. Then when the legal threats from Mr. Hale became specific, I started putting money into the fund instead. I figured when you turned 18, you might find it. I didn't know. I said. Gordon checked the mail. He had a lock on the box. I know. Miles said. I drove by the house once about 5 years ago. I saw him running to the mailbox like a guard dog. I wanted to stop. I wanted to walk up that driveway. Why didn't you? I asked. Because the law was on his side, Miles said, his jaw tightening. Your mother appointed him guardian in her will, assuming he would be a good stepfather if I had intervened. He would have dragged you through a custody battle that would have destroyed your childhood. I thought he was just possessive. I didn't know he was a thief. Caldwell cleared his throat and stepped forward, placing a new document on the table. It was a credit report. This is the hard part, Caldwell said. I looked at the report. It was thick. We ran a full forensic check on your identity. Caldwell said we needed to see if Gordon had opened any accounts in your name. I looked at the summary page. My credit score was listed. It was terrible. It was in the low 500s. How? I asked. I have never had a credit card. I pay cash for everything. You don't. Caldwell said, pointing to a line item. But your cosigner does. I read the line. Loan type mortgage refinance lender son trust primary borrower Gordon Hale. Cosigner Addison Hughes. He refinanced the house 3 years ago, Caldwell explained. His credit was shot because of his spending. He needed a cosigner to get the lower rate. He used your social security number. He forged your signature as a guarantor. I was 16. I said I couldn't cosign a loan. He listed you as 18 on the application. Caldwell said it was sloppy fraud. But the bank didn't check the birth date closely enough against the SSN database because it was a family transfer. But that is not all. He pointed to another line. Auto loan BMW financial services status delinquent. The car he drives. Miles said. His voice cold. The silver sedan. He bought it in your name. I felt sick. Physically sick. Gordon drove that car to work every day. He drove me to school in it. He acted like the big provider, the man of the house. And the whole time I was the one paying for it with my future. This is identity theft. I said it is a felony. Yes. Miles said. It is not a family dispute anymore, Addison. It is a federal crime. Miles looked at me for the first time. I saw the anger in his eyes. It wasn't directed at me. It was a protective, searing rage directed at the man living in Hawthorne Ridge. I cannot be your father in the past, Miles said. I miss the school plays. I miss the scraped knees. I cannot buy that time back. But I am an architect, Addison. I know how to demolish a structure that is rotten to the core. He opened his briefcase. It was sleek, black leather. He pulled out a file. I have hired my own legal team to support Mr. Caldwell, Miles said. We are not looking for a settlement. We are looking for a reckoning. But it is your call. You are the plaintiff. You are the victim. He looked me in the eye. Do you want to spare him? Miles asked. Do you want to let him sell the house, pay you a fraction, and disappear to Florida? I thought about the $10 on the floor. I thought about the rent money bribe. I thought about the fake smile in the birthday cake. I thought about the blank line on my birth certificate and the letters marked return to sender. Gordon hadn't just stolen my money. He had stolen the option of having a father. He had stolen my good name. He had stolen my credit. He had used me as a human shield for his own failures. I looked at Caldwell. Then I looked at Miles. He told me I was a burden. I said softly. For 7 years he made me feel like I owed him for the air I breathed. I picked up the credit report. I saw the delinquency notices. I do not want to spare him, I said. I do not want a deal. Caldwell clicked his pen. Then what is the instruction? I want to finish it the right way, I said. I do not want to scream. I do not want to throw things. I want it to be legal. I want it to be undeniable. I want to walk into that house on my birthday and strip him of everything he thinks he owns. No noise, Miles said, nodding in approval. No noise. I agreed. But no mercy. Caldwell checked his watch. The process server is ready. The bank compliance officer is on standby. We have the forensic accounting report detailing the embezzlement and the identity fraud. We can move on your birthday evening. That is tomorrow. I said it is. Caldwell said. Can you go back there tonight? Can you sleep under the same roof as him one last time without tipping your hand? I can. I said I have been practicing for years. Miles stepped forward. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small burner phone. Keep this, he said. If he gets aggressive, if he senses anything, you push the number 1. I will be parked 2 streets away starting tonight. I took the phone. It was warm from his pocket. Thank you, I said. Miles. He smiled. Then, a small sad genuine smile. You look like her. You have her chin. I walked out of the office with a plan that was no longer just about survival. It was about execution. Gordon Hale thought he was dealing with a 19-year-old girl who could be bought with rent money. He didn't know he was about to face a forensic accountant, a federal lawsuit, and the ghost of the man he had blocked from the mailbox. I drove back to the house. The sun was setting. Gordon's silver BMW. My silver BMW was in the driveway. I walked inside. Gordon was watching TV. Did you think about the deal? He asked. Not looking away from the screen. I'm thinking about it. Elite. I will give you my answer tomorrow evening for my birthday dinner. Good girl, he said. I walked up the stairs to my room, listening to the laugh track from the sitcom below. Good girl. Tomorrow the laugh track would stop. The Tuesday of my 19th birthday was not a celebration. It was a tactical operation. At 10 o'clock in the morning, while Gordon was at work believing he had successfully bullied me into submission, I was sitting in the conference room of the Caldwell firm. The mahogany table, which had previously held the debris of my past, the letters from Miles, the forged credit report, was now covered in the blueprint for my future. Ren Caldwell stood at the head of the table. He looked like a general reviewing the map before a final offensive. "Let us review the inventory," Caldwell said. His voice was crisp, devoid of the sympathy he had shown yesterday. Today was about procedure. He tapped a thick stack of documents bound with a heavy binder clip. "Exhibit it," he said. "The petition for removal of trustee for cause. This details the embezzlement, the commingling of funds, and the breach of fiduciary duty. It is already filed with the probate court. The judge signed the temporary restraining order at 9:30 this morning." He moved to the next stack. "Exhibit B. The forensic accounting report. This traces the flow of funds from the Evergrade Trust to the shell company, Hale Home Improvements, and finally to Gordon's personal accounts. We have matched the dates of withdrawals to his travel itineraries and credit card payments for the BMW. He pointed to a single thin sheet of paper in Exhibit C, the affidavit of forgery. This declares that the signature on the consent extension document was not yours, supported by a handwriting analysis expert who compared it to your school records from the same month. I looked at the paperwork. It was heavy. It was lethal. It was the paper trail of a man's destruction. "This is enough to send him to prison," I said. "Eventually." "Yet," Caldwell said. "But today is about stoppage. We are stopping the bleeding. We are freezing the assets and we are serving him with the lawsuit." He gestured to the people sitting on the other side of the table. "This is the extraction team," Caldwell said. I looked at them. There were 3 people I had not met before. First was a man named Marcus. He was large, built like a linebacker, wearing a cheap suit that struggled to contain his shoulders. He had a kind face but eyes that didn't blink often. "Marcus is a process server," Caldwell explained. "He is licensed by the state to deliver the legal summons. Once he hands the papers to Gordon and announces the contents, Gordon is legally notified. He cannot claim ignorance. He cannot say the dog ate the mail." Next to Marcus was a woman with severe glasses and a laptop case. "This is Ms. Yoder," Caldwell said. "She is from the bank's internal compliance division. After you sent that email and we followed up with the fraud report, the bank realized their oversight. Yoder is here to secure the physical tokens, checkbooks, debit cards, and to formally notify Gordon that his access is revoked. We do not usually do house calls," Yoder said, her voice dry as dust. "But given the amount of money and the identity theft component involving a bank loan, the vice president insisted on a direct intervention. And finally," Caldwell said, nodding to Miles, who was standing by the door, "Mr. Arden providing logistical support." Miles stepped forward. He wasn't wearing a suit today. He was wearing dark jeans and a black jacket. He looked ready to drive. "I will be in the SUV out front," Miles said. "I am not coming in unless you signal. This is your house. Addison. This is your fight. I am just the getaway driver." "There is no getaway," I said. "I am not running." "Correction," Miles said softly. "I am the transport to your new life." Caldwell cleared his throat, bringing the focus back to the timeline. "The timing is crucial," he said. "We need to catch him when he is comfortable, when his guard is down." 6 o'clock. I said he gets home at 5:45. He changes his clothes. He gets a beer. He sits in the recliner to watch the evening news at 6. By 6:10, he is settled. He won't move until dinner. Then we strike at 6:12. Caldwell said, "Addison, you will be inside. You will initiate the contact. We will be parked down the street. When you give the signal or when 5 minutes have elapsed, we move in. The signal, I said. Caldwell handed me the envelope. It was the same cream-colored envelope I had envisioned, sealed with wax. But inside it was engineered. It is a 2-stage disclosure, Caldwell explained. The outer envelope contains a letter from you. It is personal. It is the distraction. The inner envelope contains the court order and the demand for immediate surrender of assets. He opens the first one. He gets emotional. He reads the second one. He realizes he is dead. And the recording? I asked. Caldwell reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small digital voice recorder. It was slim. Easy to hide in a pocket. Ohio is a one-party consent state, Caldwell said. That means as long as you are part of the conversation, you can record it without the other person's permission. It is perfectly legal. He slid the recorder across the table. I want you to turn this on before you walk into that living room. We need him to say something specific. We need him to admit that the signature was his doing or that he spent the money for himself. We have the paper trail. But a verbal admission is the nail in the coffin. It prevents him from claiming it was an accounting error or a misunderstanding. How do I get him to say it? I asked. You play the victim one last time, Caldwell said. You ask him why. Men like Gordon, when they think they have won, they love to explain their genius. They love to justify their sins. Give him the platform and he will hang himself. I took the recorder. It felt heavy in my hand. Okay, I said. 612. I spent the afternoon at the house moving like a ghost. Gordon was at work. Kylie was at school practice. The house was silent, filled with the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I went to my room. I didn't pack everything. I didn't want to look like I was fleeing. I wanted to look like I was leaving. There is a difference. Fleeing is done in fear. Leaving is done with purpose. I packed one duffel bag. I took my clothes. I took the few books that mattered to me. I took the framed photo of my mother from my nightstand. I took the metal box from the closet, the one Tessa and I had cracked open. I checked under the bed. I checked the drawers. I left behind the cheap trinkets Gordon had bought me over the years to keep me quiet. I left the stuffed animals. I left the childhood that hadn't really been a childhood. At 4 o'clock, I took a shower. I dressed carefully. I didn't wear sweatpants. I wore jeans and a clean white shirt. I put on a cardigan. I wanted to look like myself, but a sharper version. 5:45. I heard the garage door open. My heart slammed against my ribs. Thump, thump, thump. I landed on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. This was it. The enemy was in the castle. I heard his heavy footsteps in the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator open, the pop of a beer tab, the sigh of a man who thinks he has gotten away with it. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tessa. Tessa. Are you okay? Do you need me to drive by and honk or something? I smiled weakly. I typed back. Me? No. The cavalry is already here. They are parked down the street. Tessa. If you shake. Remember to breathe. You do not need to scream. You need to be right. I read the text 3 times. I need to be right. At 6 o'clock. The television downstairs turned on. The familiar theme music of the evening news drifted up the stairs. I stood up. I slipped the digital recorder into my pocket and flipped the switch. A tiny red light blinked once, then went dark as it began to record. I picked up the cream-colored envelope. I walked to the mirror. I looked at Addison Hughes. I looked at the girl who had been afraid to ask for lunch money. I looked at the girl who had believed she was a burden. Goodbye, I whispered to her. I walked out of the room and closed the door. I descended the stairs. Each step was silent. I knew which boards creaked. I knew how to move in this house without making a sound, a skill I had learned to avoid Gordon's moods. I reached the bottom of the stairs. I could see the back of his head over the top of the recliner. He was balding slightly at the crown. He looked small. He looked comfortable. I walked into the living room. I stood in the center of the rug directly between him and the television. He didn't notice me at first. He was watching a report about the weather. "Gordon," I said. He jumped slightly, spilling a drop of beer on his shirt. He looked up annoyed. "Jesus. Addison," he muttered. "You scared me. I didn't hear you come down." He wiped the beer off his shirt. Then he remembered what day it was. He remembered the deal he had offered. He remembered that he needed my signature. He put on the smile. It was tighter today. More strained. "Well," he said. "Happy birthday officially. Did you think about what we discussed the rental agreement? I have the cash right here in my briefcase." He patted the leather bag next to his chair. He had $15,000 in cash in there. He was ready to buy me off right now. I stood there, my hands at my sides. "I thought about it," I said. And Gordon asked, leaning forward, "It is a good deal, Addie. It is a fresh start. I do not want the money, Gordon," I said. His smile flickered. "What do you mean?" "Everyone wants money. You need it for an apartment. I don't want your money," I corrected. "I want mine."
Gordon sighed.
The patience was evaporating. "We have been over this. The trust is empty. I am offering you a gift. The trust isn't empty," I said calmly. "It is just in the wrong account. It is in the Hale Home Improvements account." Gordon went still. His eyes locked onto mine. The air in the room turned into ice. "I told you," he said. His voice low and dangerous. "Stop digging. You do not know what you are talking about. I know you forged my signature," I said. I needed him to say it. I needed the recording to catch it. "I know you signed the extension the day after I turned 18. I did what I had to do." Gordon snapped. "You were a child. I signed it to protect the assets. If I hadn't signed it, you would have wasted it." "Gotcha." I felt the recorder burning in my pocket. He had just admitted to signing it. He had justified the forgery. "So you admit it?" I said. "You signed my name?" "I signed it because I am your father," he shouted, standing up. "I have rights. I raised you. I deserve that compensation for putting up with you for 7 years. And there is the motive. Compensation." He admitted he took the money as payment. "You are not my father," I said. Gordon laughed. It was a cruel, ugly sound. "Oh, really? And who is that deadbeat who left your mother?" "I am the one who was here, Addison. I am the one who paid the bills. I am the one who put a roof over your head. That money was mine by right. I earned it." He was fully committed now. He was shouting his confession at the ceiling, thinking he was the king of the castle, thinking his volume made him right. "That is all I needed to hear," I said softly. He looked at me, confused by my sudden calm. "What?" I said. "That is all I needed." He reached into his pocket. I knew what was coming. It was the ritual. The final insult. The dismissal. He pulled out a crumpled bill. "You are ungrateful," he sneered. "You are just like your mother, always thinking the world owes you something. You want money here." He flicked his wrist. The $10 bill flew through the air, fluttered, turning over once, twice. It hit my collarbone. It slid down the front of my cardigan. It landed on the floor between us. Hamilton stared up at the ceiling. I looked at the clock on the wall. 6:12. Gordon sat back down in his recliner, picking up the remote. He dismissed me. He thought the conversation was over. He thought he had won again. "Get out of my sight," he muttered. "Take the $10 and go buy yourself a clue." I bent down. I didn't pick up the money to keep it. I picked it up to clear the stage. I folded the bill. I smiled. It was a smile that didn't reach my eyes, but it didn't need to. I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out the cream-colored envelope. The wax seal was cold against my thumb. Thank you, Gordon, I said. I stepped forward and placed the heavy envelope in his palm. He looked at it. He looked at me. He frowned. What is this? He asked. A tuition bill. Read the front, I said. He read the words I had written for Gordon Hale. Open. Then look outside. He tore it open, and the trap snapped shut. The doorbell did not just ring. It severed the air in the living room like a guillotine blade dropping. Gordon froze. His hand was still hovering near the remote control. His face pale from the sight of the black SUV outside. He looked at the front door, then back at me. His eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning horror. For a man who had controlled every aspect of his environment for 7 years, from the thermostat settings to the mail delivery, he suddenly looked like a stranger in his own home. Who is that? He whispered. It was a rhetorical question. He knew who it was. The instruction on the envelope I had just given him. Open then look outside had already answered it. You should probably answer it, Gordon, I said. My voice was steady, anchored by the weight of the digital recorder in my pocket, and the knowledge that for the first time I was the one holding the keys. Gordon stumbled toward the hallway. He moved with the jerky, uncoordinated steps of a man walking underwater. I followed him, keeping my distance, watching his back. He reached for the handle, hesitated, and then pulled the door open, intending to block the frame with his body, to use his physical bulk to intimidate whoever was on the porch. But you cannot intimidate the law. 3 people stood on the welcome mat. They were arranged in a perfect triangle, a formation designed to cut off escape and assert dominance. At the front was Marcus, the process server. He was even larger up close than he had looked in the conference room. He filled the doorway, a wall of cheap polyester and absolute indifference. Behind him, to the left, stood Ren Caldwell, holding his briefcase like a weapon. To the right was MS Yoder from the bank, clutching a file against her chest, her expression severe. Gordon Hale, Marcus asked. He did not wait for an answer. He knew. He thrust a thick envelope toward Gordon's chest. You have been served. Gordon recoiled, his hands coming up instinctively to push the papers away. Get off my porch. You cannot just. He tried to slam the door. Marcus did not shove him. He did not kick the door. He simply placed a heavy size 13 leather shoe across the threshold. The door hit his foot with a dull thud and bounced back. Mr. Hale, Ren Caldwell said, stepping into the gap. His voice was smooth, polished, and sharp as a scalpel. I represent Addison Hughes. We are not here to sell you cookies. We are here to execute a court order regarding the immediate removal of a trustee. Gordon stared at Caldwell. Then he stared at me. You brought lawyers to my house, Gordon hissed, his face turning a mottled red. On your birthday. After everything I have done for you. We are coming in, Caldwell said. It was not a request. The 3 of them stepped into the foyer. Gordon was forced to back up, retreating into the living room, surrendering ground in the house he claimed was his kingdom. We formed a semicircle around the recliner. Gordon stood with his back to the television, the weather reporter still smiling maniacally behind him. He looked small. He looked cornered. But like any cornered animal, he decided to snap. This is harassment, Gordon shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. I took you in. I fed you. I clothed you when you had nobody. And this is how you repay me. By bringing these vultures into my living room. He turned to MS Yoder, playing the role of the aggrieved patriarch. She is a confused child, Gordon pleaded, his voice cracking with feigned emotion. I have raised her for 7 years. I have sacrificed everything for her. I stepped forward. The time for silence was over. You did not raise me, Gordon, I said. You housed me and you charged me for it. I never charged you a dime, he roared. You charged me $140,000, I said calmly. You just took it before I could see it. That is a lie. Gordon screamed. I managed that money. I invested it. Ms. Yoder cleared her throat. The sound was quiet, but it silenced the room instantly. She adjusted her glasses and opened the file she was holding. Mr. Hale, she said. Her tone was bored, bureaucratic, and terrifying. I am with the Compliance Division of Sunrust Bank. As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, we have flagged 42 separate transactions from the Evergrey Trust to an entity known as Hale Home Improvements. We have also flagged the wire transfer you attempted to initiate this morning. Gordon went white. We have opened a formal internal investigation regarding embezzlement and fraud. Yoder continued. Your access to all accounts associated with the bank, including your personal checking and the joint account with your daughter, Kylie, has been frozen pending the audit. The silence that followed was absolute. My personal account, Gordon whispered. You froze my paycheck. We freeze everything when we suspect money laundering, Ms. Yoder said. It is federal policy. Gordon slumped against the television console. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. The reality of the financial freeze hit him harder than the lawsuit. He could handle a yelling match. He could not handle a declined debit card. Then, from the hallway stairs, there was a gasp. I turned. Kylie was standing there. She was wearing the suede boots she had bought last week. She was holding her phone, but her thumb was hovering over the screen. Frozen. She had heard everything. Dad, Kylie asked, her voice small and trembling. What does she mean? Embezzlement. Gordon's head snapped up. Kylie, go to your room. This does not concern you. You said you got a bonus, Kylie said, walking slowly down the stairs. Her eyes were wide, darting from the bank representative to the process server. For the trip to Cabo. You said it was a work bonus. I looked at Kylie. I didn't feel the anger I expected. I just felt pity. She was realizing that her entire life was built on a foundation of theft. It was a bonus. Gordon lied, desperate to maintain the facade in front of his biological child. Addison is confused. She is letting this lawyer twist things. He turned back to Caldwell, his eyes manic. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped a credit card on the floor. He scrambled to find a piece of paper. The folded copy of the consent extension he had carried around like a talisman. He waved the paper in Caldwell's face. She agreed to this. Gordon shouted. She signed it. Look right there. Addison Hughes. Dated August 15th. She gave me permission to manage the funds until she was 25. She waived the accounting. It is a legal contract. He looked triumphant. He thought this piece of paper, this forgery he had crafted so carefully at the kitchen table, was his shield. Caldwell did not even blink. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a transparent overlay. Mr. Hill, Caldwell said. This is a forensic analysis of the signature on that document. And this? He held up a second sheet. Is the signature from Addison's driving permit application signed 2 weeks prior. Caldwell overlaid the 2 sheets. They do not match. Caldwell said. The pressure points are wrong. The loop on the G is consistent with your handwriting, not hers. We have a handwriting expert prepared to testify that you traced her signature from a school permission slip. That is ridiculous, Gordon sputtered. Handwriting changes. She was nervous. And the date, Caldwell added relentlessly. You dated it August 15th. But on August 15th, Addison was on a school retreat. We have the attendance records. She was not even in the state to sign this. That was a lie. I had been home. But Caldwell threw it out as a bluff to see if Gordon would crack. Gordon didn't catch the bluff. He was too busy drowning. She signed it. Gordon insisted. Sweat pouring down his forehead. I put it in front of her and she signed it. So, you admit you presented the document? Caldwell asked quickly. Yet, no. I mean. Gordon stammered. I stepped closer to the coffee table. I needed to end this. I needed to give him the rope. Gordon, I said. Stop. He looked at me. His chest heaving. I am going to offer you one last thing. I said. Not a deal. A mercy. I pointed to the papers Marcus had served him. You are going to sign a resignation as trustee effective immediately. I said you are going to sign a confession of judgment agreeing to repay every dollar you took plus interest. You are going to sell this house to cover the debt and you are going to sign a no-contact order. You will never speak to me again. Gordon stared at me. And if I do? If you do, I said, Mr. Caldwell walks out of here and files criminal charges with the district attorney. We have the identity theft on the mortgage. We have the fraud. That is 5 to 10 years in prison. Gordon, if you sign now, we keep it civil. We keep it out of the papers for Kylie's sake. I looked at Kylie. She was crying silently by the banister. Gordon looked at his daughter. Then he looked back at me. I thought for a second he might do the right thing. I thought he might surrender to save what was left of his family's dignity. But Gordon Hale was a narcissist. And narcissists do not surrender. They attack. He let out a short, barking laugh. It was full of venom. You think you can threaten me in my own house? He sneered. You little ungrateful brat. I should have left you to the state when your mother died. He slammed the forged document onto the coffee table. I did you a favor. He shouted. I signed that damn paper for you. You were too stupid to understand finance. I signed it to save time. I signed it because I knew what was best. The room went dead silent. Even Kylie stopped crying. Gordon stood there, chest heaving. The echo of his words bouncing off the walls. I signed that damn paper for you. He had said it. He had admitted to the forgery. He had admitted to the intent. He had stripped away his own defense of Addison, agreed to it in a fit of rage. I looked at Ron Caldwell. Caldwell didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He simply reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen. Thank you, Mr. Hale. Caldwell said. We needed that specific sentence. Gordon blinked. What? I reached into my cardigan pocket. I pulled out the small digital recorder. The red light was still blinking. A tiny unblinking eye that had seen everything. I placed it gently on the coffee table right next to the $10 bill Gordon had thrown at me 10 minutes ago. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I said. I recorded this entire conversation. You just confessed to forgery and fraud on tape. Gordon looked at the recorder. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse standing upright. He realized finally that he hadn't been arguing with a teenager. He had been arguing with a prosecutor's exhibit. You, he whispered. You set me up. No, I said. I just let you be yourself. Yoder stepped forward. She placed a heavy black binder on the table next to the recorder. Mr. Hale, she said. I need you to hand over your keys to the house, your car keys, and your passport. The bank is seizing the collateral for the fraudulent loan you took out in MS. Hughes's name. My car. Gordon choked out. You cannot take my car. It is not your car. I said. It is in my name. Remember. Gordon looked around the room. The walls were closing in. The triangle of professionals held their ground. Kylie was looking at him like he was a monster. The recorder sat on the table, humming. He slumped into his recliner, the fight leaving him all at once. He was not a tyrant anymore. He was just a man who had stolen from an orphan and gotten caught. "Kylie," he rasped, looking toward the stairs. "Kylie. Honey, tell them. Tell them I am a good dad." Kylie looked at him. She looked at the suede boots on her feet. The boots bought with my money. She looked at the man who had lied to her for years. She turned around and walked back up the stairs, closing her bedroom door with a definitive click. Gordon covered his face with his hands. Caldwell looked at me. He gave a single sharp nod. "It is done," Caldwell said. "We have the confession. We have the paper trail. We have the assets frozen." I looked at Gordon one last time. I felt a strange lightness in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was the absence of weight. The burden was gone. "I am leaving now." "Gordon," I said. I left the keys to the back door on the counter. I took my mother's picture. "You can keep the $10. I turned and walked toward the front door. The air outside was cool and crisp. The sun had set and the street lights were flickering on. I walked past the black SUV. The window rolled down. Miles Arden was sitting there. He didn't say anything. He just watched me, his eyes full of pride. I walked to my own car, the rusty sedan I had paid for myself. I opened the door. Behind me, in the house on Hawthorne Ridge, the shouting had stopped. There was only the sound of legal papers being shuffled and the quiet dismantling of a lie. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what I was leaving behind. The recording of Gordon's confession was still humming on the coffee table, a tiny red light blinking like a warning beacon in the silent living room. Gordon stared at it, his mouth opening and closing, the realization of what he had just admitted sinking in. He had confessed to forgery. He had confessed to intent. He had handed us the key to his own cell. But we were not done. The trap I had built with Ron Caldwell was not designed to just catch the animal. It was designed to dismantle the cage he had built around me. Caldwell reached for the cream-colored envelope that Gordon had torn open moments ago. He reached inside, past the initial letter, and pulled out the second layer of documents. This was the mechanism I had prepared for the moment the good father mask slipped. "This," Caldwell said, his voice stripping the air of any remaining warmth, "is the second half of your birthday present, Mr. Hale." He placed a document on the table. It was stamped with the seal of the county probate court. "This is an ex parte order signed by Judge Harrison at 9 o'clock this morning," Caldwell announced. "It orders the immediate suspension of your trusteeship. It appoints an independent fiduciary to take control of all assets related to Addison Hughes, and it grants a temporary restraining order freezing any financial accounts where your name appears alongside hers." Gordon looked at the paper. "You went to a judge behind my back." "We went to a judge with evidence," Caldwell corrected. "And the judge agreed that you are a flight risk with the assets." Oder, the compliance officer from the bank, stepped forward again. She did not look at Gordon with anger. She looked at him with the clinical detachment of a mortician examining a body. She opened her black binder to a page flagged with red sticky notes. "Mr. Hale," she said, "regarding your claim that you invested the money, our preliminary audit of the Evergrey Trust shows 42 withdrawals payable to Hale Home Improvements LLC over the last 4 years. We checked the business registration. The LLC has no employees, no insurance, and no other clients. Its only income is from the trust. Its only expenses are transfers to your personal checking account." Gordon wiped sweat from his upper lip. That is a legitimate company. I do maintenance. I fix the roof. I paint. I am allowed to be compensated for labor for $140,000. Yoder asked. "Did you reshingle the roof with gold leaf, Mr.
Help.
Because according to the invoices you submitted to yourself, you charged $5,000 for gutter cleaning in February in Ohio when the gutters were frozen solid. Gordon stammered. It was projected maintenance. Prepaid services. It is laundering, Caldwell said, flipping a page in his own file. And we have the deposit slips to prove the money went from the LLC straight to your car payments and your credit card bills for trips to Cabo. Gordon looked around the room, his eyes darting for a lifeline. He pointed at MS. Yodar. It is your fault, he shouted. The bank let me do it. I went into the branch and the tellers never said a word. They cashed the checks. If it was illegal, why didn't you stop me? You are trying to scapegoat me to cover your own incompetent security. Yoder didn't flinch. Our tellers assume a trustee is acting in good faith. Abuse of that faith is not a banking error. Mr. Hill, it is a crime. Gordon turned to me. Addison. Listen to me. These people are twisting everything. They are trying to ruin us. You are being brainwashed. Who told you to do this? Was it that girl Tessa? She has always been jealous of our family. I just watched him. He was flailing. He was trying to blame the bank, the system, my friends, anyone but the man in the mirror. And then there is the matter of the loan, Caldwell said. The room got colder. Caldwell placed a single sheet of paper on the table. It was the loan application for the mortgage refinance Gordon had taken out 3 years ago. This is the document that upgrades this situation from a financial dispute to a federal case, Caldwell said softly. Gordon froze. He knew this one. This was the skeleton he thought was buried deepest. You refinanced this house. Caldwell said you needed a cosigner because your credit score was below 600 due to your spending habits. So, you used a cosigner with a clean slate. You used Addison. It is her house, too, Gordon argued, his voice rising in a panic. She lives here. It is a family asset. I put her name on it to build her credit history. I was doing her a favor. You put her name on it without her knowledge, Caldwell countered. You used her social security number. You forged her signature as a guarantor. That is not a favor, Gordon. That is identity theft. That is aggravated identity fraud. I paid the mortgage, Gordon yelled. I never missed a payment. You paid it with money you stole from her trust, I said. The words cut through his shouting. You stole my money to pay a mortgage on a house you own, I continued. And you used my name to secure the loan so you could keep stealing. You made me pay for my own prison. Gordon slumped back. He looked at the paperwork on the table. The court order. The bank audit. The loan application. It was a wall of evidence brick by brick that he could not shout down. Then the front door opened again. Miles Arden walked in. He had been waiting outside, letting the lawyers do the technical work. But now he stepped into the light. He carried nothing but a small rubber-banded stack of envelopes. Gordon looked up. He squinted, not recognizing the man at first. Then, as Miles stepped closer to the lamp, Gordon's eyes widened. He recognized the jawline. He recognized the eyes that matched mine. You, Gordon whispered. I told you to stay away. You told me a lot of things, Miles said. His voice was deep, shaking the floorboards. You told me you would take care of her. You told me she didn't want to know me. You told me she was happy. Miles walked to the coffee table. He didn't look at the lawyers. He looked only at Gordon. He placed the stack of letters on the table. The ones marked return to sender in red marker. The ones Gordon had blocked for a decade. You didn't just take the money, Miles said. Money can be replaced. I can earn more money. Addison can earn money. He tapped the letters with a heavy finger. But you took her history, Miles said. You took her right to know she was wanted. You took 12 years of birthday cards and letters because you were afraid that if she knew she had a father, she might stop being your victim. Gordon looked at the letters. He couldn't meet Miles's eyes. I was protecting her, Gordon mumbled. But the fight was gone from his voice. You were absent. I was blocked, Miles corrected. By you and by the lies you told her about me being dead. I stepped forward. I was standing between the two men who had defined my life. The one who wanted me but couldn't reach me and the one who had me but didn't want me. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the folded $10 bill. I walked over to Gordon. He looked up at me. His eyes rimmed with red, looking old and defeated. I placed the bill on his knee. I tucked a small folded piece of notepaper underneath it. Read it, I said. Gordon unfolded the note with trembling fingers. I had written it that morning, sitting in my room, looking at the empty walls. This is the last gift I will ever give you. You can no longer buy me cheap. Gordon read the note. He looked at the $10. The insult he had thrown at me an hour ago had returned to him as a tombstone. Addison, he choked out. Please. We can fix this. I can pay it back. Just call them off. Do not let them take me. I looked at Caldwell. Activate it, I said. Caldwell reached for the digital recorder. He pressed a button. Gordon's voice filled the room. Tiny, but unmistakable. Recorded just minutes ago. I signed that damn paper for you. You were too stupid to understand finance. I signed it to save time. The confession hung in the air. That is the ball game, Caldwell said. You are on the record admitting to the forgery that facilitated the theft. M. Yodar closed her binder with a snap. Mr. Hale, she said. I am formally notifying you that the bank is exercising its right to call the loan due to the fraudulent application. You have 30 days to vacate the property before foreclosure proceedings begin, and I need you to hand over the keys to the BMW immediately. It is an asset of the trust, and you are no longer the trustee. Gordon looked at his hands. He looked at the luxury car keys on the side table. He looked at the house he was about to lose. He had nothing left. No money. No reputation. No daughter. No house. He started to cry. It wasn't a dignified cry. It was the sobbing of a man who realizes the world has finally stopped believing his lies. I did my best. He sobbed. I tried. No. Gordon, I said. You didn't try. You took. I turned to Miles. I am ready. Miles nodded. He picked up my duffel bag near the door. I turned to Caldwell and Ms. Yoder. Thank you. Please ensure the locks are changed once he is out. We will handle everything, Caldwell said. Go live your life. Addison. I walked toward the door. I didn't look back at the man weeping in the recliner. I didn't look back at the television that was still playing the evening news. I didn't look back at the beige walls that had been my prison. I stopped at the threshold. The night air smelled like rain and freedom. Addison, Gordon called out. One last desperate plea. You cannot just leave. This is your home. I paused. I didn't turn around. I spoke to the open air. Loud enough for him to hear. Loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Loud enough for the universe to hear. I am not leaving home. Gordon, I said. I am leaving a lie. I stepped out onto the porch. Behind me, I heard the heavy definitive sound of Marcus, the process server, closing his leather portfolio. It sounded like the slamming of a heavy iron door. It sounded like the end of an era. I walked down the steps past the manicured lawn and got into my own car. Miles got into his SUV behind me. I turned the key. The engine roared to life. I put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb, leaving Hawthorne Ridge in the rearview mirror, shrinking smaller and smaller until it was just a speck of light in the darkness and then finally nothing at all. Thank you so much for listening to Addison's story of justice and reclamation. I I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Please drop a comment below with your city or country, so we can see how far this story has traveled. If you enjoyed this revenge drama, please subscribe to Echoa Karen Vlog. Hit that like button and smash the hype button to help this story reach even more people who need to know that the truth always wins. See you in the next story.